Dan Sugarman, welcome to the show. Thank you for making time for this. I have some very important, serious questions about your health and career and guitars and all that stuff. But, I got to start with a trash question for engagement, which is, when was the last time that you pooped your pants? And just to be clear, sharts do count.
I really, 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 really appreciate this question, dude. Also, thank you for having me. I'm a huge fan of this podcast. So for me, sorry.
What was that?
I just shat myself. So
now, was that a full-on or just a little shart?
That was a little shart. No, dude. So okay. I have this memory of my mother making like tiger shrimp or some shit on the grill. And you already know where this is going, right? It's like if shrimp is underdone, you've got some well done char in the old pants there. So basically,
right.
Dinner was a good time. I was fucking stoked. And then I was just like, I think just working on something in my studio. This was in my adult life. This was when I was like 20, right? Not in my childhood.
Okay.
And I was working on something and I thought I would just let out a little squeaker, and it turned out to be a little more dense than I planned for. A little more viscous.
Got a little bit of a bonus. Yeah, I was I've definitely sharted in the years since then, but the last one I remember really being like notable, I was maybe 23 or something like that, and I got up in the middle of the night to use the bathroom. This was 2001 or 2 or something like that. So I still wore boxers back then. I got up to use the bathroom to pee at night. I peed and again thought I would sneak out a fart. Turned out to be a little bit more than that, and a little nugget actually fell out the bottom of my boxers.
Dude, I was gonna say you don't have the cuff at the bottom of like the
exactly exactly. So, and we had one of those little like rugs around the toilet, and my roommate at the time, like, and I picked it up. I thought I'd clean it up. My roommate at the time in the morning was like, "What the fuck is that like slime? Did you shit like on the floor in front of the toilet?" And I was like, kind of.
Was there like shame, or were you just like picking up after your dog, just like bending down and picking up a turd?
Yeah, more like that. I mean, it's like, listen, we're all humans, what are you going to do?
I mean, we have holes in us. I mean, you could argue we're broken, right? Like there's clearly a leak somewhere.
Speak for yourself, buddy.
Yeah, I mean, dude, I've always thought we were born with cracks and holes in us. There's a design
exactly.
flaw. Yeah.
If sharting on the floor at 23 years old is wrong, then I don't want to be right. That's all I have to say.
Dude, fuck, I'm here for this. I'm gonna drink coffee to kind of hope I can shart again today, but
yeah, best of luck.
Thanks,
well, on a more serious note, you have survived thyroid cancer, and you are now back in action, I think, right?
Yeah, that's the plan.
So how does it feel to make it through all of that and kind of get back to something like normal life? And really quickly, I also wanted to mention my Patreon. If you like what I do on YouTube and everywhere else, joining my Patreon really helps me do this full time and worry less about videos getting demonetized by YouTube or copyright claimed by labels. Patrons get all my podcasts and main channel videos early. There are members only channels in my Discord that I'm super active in. I also do giveaways. For example, I've been giving away a lot of Emo's Not Dead merch, and you can also have me review your music, artwork, or anything else. All you need to do is join my Patreon at the $10 level, and then every month I do a call for submissions. If you want me to review something, just drop it in the comments of that post, and then I will review it live on Twitch. So if any of that sounds cool to you, hit the link in the description of this video, and I appreciate your support.
I kind of can't even begin to fathom this discussion. And to be honest, Finn, you're the first person to directly ask me this. So this is like a very, very, very candid thought here. For one, what's it like to go through all that shit? Scariest thing that could possibly happen in my life. My mother died of cancer. I have a lot of cancer history, like just in my family stuff.
Thyroid cancer doesn't normally kill people usually.
No, it doesn't. But it's
still scary. I don't mean to minimize them. I go, come on, Dan. Dude. What's the big deal?
Pussy. Yeah, dude. What did you get? Vagina cancer? Come
right.
on. So basically, it was this thing where like I found this giant ass lump on my neck, and it was out of nowhere. And because I am the way that I am, because I dealt with so much medical stuff with my mother and my dad, actually, I was really against wanting to go get it checked out. I'm like a really, really, really spiritual type dude, right? So I was like, I'm gonna fucking meditate this thing away. I'm gonna disappear for a couple weeks and do nothing but like focus on positive intentions and do all this shit. And like it didn't get worse, but it didn't get better. And I got to a point where like this lump in my neck, which turned out to be a cancerous tumor, was so large. It was about 6 centimeters. It was so large that it was actually collapsing my trachea. So like
Oh, wow.
breathing and talking was challenging. You know, like since I wasn't touring, I was teaching 3-4 days a week. So like my lessons were really fucking challenging. I'm like wheezing and winded, and then like.
And you're just like kind of hoping this is going to go away?
Yeah, I mean, dude, ironically, I've had something before on my left side when I was living in Texas. My gland, like underneath my jaw, I was eating a tuna wrap, and all of a sudden my gland exploded like the size of a baseball, and I was freaking out. And then the next day it was gone. So in my mind, I'm thinking like, maybe this is one of those things, or maybe that was the beginning of this. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't really know.
Yeah.
The catch-22 of the whole thing, but effectively,
it's scary stuff when you feel giant lumps on your neck.
I mean, any lumps usually suck, right?
Yeah.
In reality, dude. Actually, I like lumpy oatmeal is pretty good. I'll take that back. But
or pulpy OJ. I'm a big fan.
I'm a big fan. Speaking of lumps, dude, I just watched Ace Ventura recently. That shit did not hold up.
I have never seen that movie.
Oh my God, there's this bit at the end where like the antagonist is like it's a male football player that turns into a female cop. And like the whole like the end bit of the movie is like pantsing her to like show Mr. Winky that she's stuffed between her butt, like tucked in. Never mind. Lump jokes going over the head. It does not hold up.
Yeah.
It does not hold up, dude.
So you got your thyroid out completely then. They cut your neck open.
So I got half of my thyroid removed, and I'm doing a bunch of incredible like skin stuff to make sure that my scar is not gnarly.
Yeah.
Although I should have just like thrown salt and acid at it so it could be like a makeup special effects thing for Ice Nine.
Right.
You don't have to do fucking makeup anymore. But yeah, dude. So it was discovered. We did. Do I want to talk shit on? Yeah, dude. You know what? It's whatever. Really be an advocate for yourself. I had Medi-Cal, not very good health insurance, and then I had student doctors taking care of me. Terrifying, right? That's like people younger than me telling me what to do to save my life.
Oh, I'm pretty sure this is not good.
Straight up, dude. Straight up. And like I'm like, yeah, like I'd really love if we could get this handled and like make sure it's nothing so I could go back on tour with my band. They're like, you're in a band? What are you? And then they start fanboying on that. And then it's just like, this is immediately not feeling like a doctor's supposed to feel. I don't like this.
Yeah.
And they do a biopsy. So thyroid shit is really freaking weird. It reaches what's called, they have a Thyroid scale. Thyroid's 1 through 5. And I had a Thyroid 5, which is like not good. That means they want to take it out basically. No, I'm sorry. Thyroid 5 is to do the biopsy. I forget the other scale for taking it out, but I also aced that fucking test.
Yeah.
So basically, we have to do a biopsy. A biopsy for a thyroid is really fucking gnarly. You know, when they take like an Arctic ice core sample and it's like this giant hollow tube. It's called an
I had one.
You had a thyroid, so fine needle aspiration?
Yeah.
Probably, hopefully by a professional, not a child?
I felt nothing.
I felt everything.
Oof.
So for I'll just tell people because you already know, but it's like they have to take this hollow needle, stick it into your neck, into your thyroid with no anesthetic, no nothing. You're completely awake. And they basically go in and they have to poke in all directions for 15 seconds to gather as much.
Oh, mine was just material. A little like, joop, because my thyroid wasn't that bad. So they probably were exploring a little bit more with you.
Poke, 15 seconds, come out. Let's do that 4 more times. We have to do it 5 times. And
right here in your neck.
Right here, right next to my Adam's apple, effectively. And I'm trying to remember the real name for an Adam's apple has something to do with the thyroid, which I never knew before, but it was kind of weird. Okay. An Adam's apple is like a made up name. Should be called Eve's apple. Am I right? That's kind of fucking weird.
That's right. Thanks, Eve. Thanks for nothing.
Come on, dude. Or do that. But basically, she calls me 3 days later and goes, hey, so we kind of botched the biopsy. Can you come back and do another? And I'm sitting there like expecting like, dude, and I have to zoom out a little bit on this. I was bro, this is a movie. This is the most cinematic bullshit ever. And I swear I'm not dramatizing this. I had the contract to sign to rejoin the touring situation with my band. It was on my fucking desk. I had just got off the phone with my lawyer, with Eric German, the band lawyer. Everything's a fucking go. I'm super stoked. I got the pen out, get the call from my doctor.
God, it's like a movie.
Straight up, dude. And I sat there. So I'm going to kind of fast forward a little bit. After getting the second biopsy done, that shit sucked, hurt just as bad. My doctor calls me and goes, hey, so like, this is not the news we wanted to give you, but you have cancer. And I drop to my fucking knees, lose it. Fucking like laying on the floor for like a couple hours, literally just being like, who the fuck do I have? What do I tell? Like, obviously I need to tell my family, but like my band, my fucking best friends, the crew that's like dependent on me, this entire this machine that needs to move forward. And if I am this fucking wrench in the works, that's going to be really bad. So the first thing that I did was I called Spencer, and it was like the most heavy, heartfelt conversation I've ever had with that dude. He gave me, I'm trying not to cry right now. This is really gnarly. He gave me his fucking love. He gave me his support. And the band's like blessing, so to speak, to just be like, dude, like, don't even worry about, I was like, dude, I'm so fucking sorry. Like, I want to do this tour. Like, and he's like, dude, shut the fuck up. Like, take care, stay alive. Like, don't even worry about us. We're good, man. And that really, 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 really sucked. But effectively, my doctor called and said, you have cancer. And then she called me an hour later and said, whoops, actually. Yeah. So the whole student thing was the worst thing in the fucking world. So she calls me and goes, actually, so it looks like the second biopsy wasn't as good as we thought it was as well. So what it looks like is there is like sketchy looking cells that look like papillary thyroid carcinoma. And we're going to recommend to take out the entire thyroid. And if that's the case, we're going to have to put you on thyroid medication for the rest of your life. And if you don't take it for a couple of weeks, you'll die.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, cool. So like, suckle on the teat of the man to stay alive. Like, I don't fuck with that. That's not how I operate.
Knowing what I know about you, that doesn't sound like you'd be down.
No, dude. Like my mother had brain cancer for just under 11 years. And she had 3 brain surgeries, chemotherapy, all this shit. And doctors, it was on the last tour I did with This Blood Runs Black, where we found out her tumor came back for the 4th time. And I was just immediately, I quit the band. I was like, I need to go be my mom's caregiver. I need to go fucking be by her side. I just lost like 8 years playing fucking metalcore instead of being with my mom. What the fuck, right? So I did that whole thing. And through the way that I am, through a shitload of research, all the doctors said she had about a month or 2 to live. And I found something called RSO, Rick Simpson oil. Have you heard of this before?
No.
It's a marijuana distillate. And my mom was sober for like 12 years. She had recovered from a lot of stuff. And it was a really, really big discussion to get her to try this stuff. And her tumor shrunk 45%. And we got 2 more years with her. From like me finding this shit that doctors wouldn't fucking ever say, they would never sign off on. So like, that's where I come from. So when a doctor says like, you got to get this shit removed and you got to take these pills for the rest of your life, I went into this reclusive research zone and I started just doing a lot of, I'm back to the meditation, right? A lot of thinking, a lot of deep, insightful stuff, a lot of fucking journaling. And I decided to shell out all of the fucking funds to get actual health insurance. So now I'm on like very good health insurance, and that gets me access to real doctors. And the second I had access to real doctors, I started having real conversations. And the real doctors expressed that you should advocate for yourself. Like the doctor I have now is fucking incredible. I basically auditioned like 8 different surgeons and doctors. And
as you should.
This guy straight up was like, dude, you're the king. And I'm either your general or your right-hand man. And if you want, otherwise, like, it's whatever. But just know you're the king and you have the final say. And everyone else is like telling me what to do and what I should fucking. And it's just like, that's the guy. And then I'm asking him, I'm like, hey, dude, so like my left lobe is huge. My right lobe is totally normal. Is there any way to just take like the bad side? And he was like, well, that's called a partial thyroidectomy. And that's not really common with what you have. No one would do that. But I think that's a good idea for you. And I'm going to contact my buddy who is like the world renowned. He does like all the surgeries on like the Prince of Arabia kind of fucking shit. He's like the super boutique dude. They had this conversation and had a discussion because I had this idea. They decided that that would be a better idea. And then soon after that, this research came out saying that people who need full thyroidectomies, if they get it done in 2 partials, their thyroid, their TSH levels balance out better, the recovery is better, and the prognosis is better. So basically me having my own brain and coming up with the question yielded the better idea and then the better scientifically proven idea right now. And then now here I am not needing to be on medication, but I am on medication to keep my, do I want to make this a education thing? Basically, your pituitary glands excrete something called TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone. Your thyroid then takes that and then creates T4, which turns into T3 and T2. So my pituitary gland is basically spraying enough TSH for my 2 thyroids. And it's now going to 1, which is a growth hormone. And we don't want my thyroid to grow. So I need to be on some medication so that there's no TSH going from my pituitary gland. So like, that's what I'm taking vitamin D and the most like basic shit to stay alive right now. Actually, nix that last part. I'm super fucking alive. This is just to remain extremely healthy for the rest of my life.
So you are basically back to normal life now.
Dude, I get blood work done every couple of months. I speak to my doc. My doctor's fucking awesome. He gave me his number. He's like, dude, text me if you have questions. So it's like a very, very, very fluid, comfortable, I'm in the clear kind of situation, man. It's a blessing for sure.
Well, you did have to miss this tour, which I'm sure sucked.
Oh my God. Yeah.
I'll tell you a story that I think maybe people know this about you. Maybe they don't. I mean, if they've listened to the band, they should know it. But people may not realize how much of a shredder you are. So Doc Coyle of God Forbid and Bad Wolves filled in for you, who's a good friend of mine. I've known him forever. He told me that he was going to be filling in for you like hours before like you guys announced it. And I was like, and Doc is a very good guitarist, right?
Yeah,
but I was like, oh, and I'm friends with Doc, so I could say this. I was like, can you play that stuff? And he was like, no. I don't know how I'm going to do this shit, man.
Yeah.
So the point being is, if Doc is stressing about playing your parts, that says a lot about your ability. And what is the secret to getting that good at playing guitar?
It's a really good question. First of all, I'm gonna leave this here. Doc is one of the best dudes on this earth. This man took on, like, when like a boat is taking on water and everyone's like, oh, fuck it, the water. He's just like, sick, dude, we're taking a bath. Fuck it. Like, he doesn't care. You just keep adding on like burden to him. And he's like, let's go. I'm born for this shit. I'm not going to talk about this, but he had some other incredible shit. I'm sure you know about it going on at that same time that he just recently told me. And the fact that he managed to balance both is mind blowing to me. And, him coming out at the very last minute and just being like, dudes, like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to swing these parts. They're pretty fucking gnarly. And I'm going to sit here and say, how did I get this good at guitar? By ignoring what everyone else fucking does and talked about and taught and coming up with my own approaches and like systems and processes, which is why what I play is so fucking difficult, because it doesn't come from the same foundational stuff that most people come from. Right.
Very unorthodox.
Super unorthodox. And as an Orthodox Jew, I'm just kidding. So basically it came down to like days before the tour was going to start. Like, we had this discussion, like, what are we going to do? And I was like, I know one guy who can play like I do my shit. So we got Miles. I hit him up. I called him that night. Yeah. He was like, fuck, dude, like, I got a couple days. So he and I spent like that weekend doing a bunch of Zoom calls. I would send videos to him about the parts and he got that shit down, busted his ass. Doc shifted his focus from doing like leads to harmonizing all this stuff with Miles and then doing incredibly, dude, he's got a voice of an angel. I don't think people know that.
Yeah.
He's such a good singer. It's incredible. So
it's pretty ridiculous that those two guys, pulled this together, in really like days.
Dude. It really, really, really is, man. And I'm not going to sit here and ever say anything about, I don't know if I could do that. You know what I mean? If someone hit me up and was like, hey, like, here's this guy who plays a bunch of stupid fucking notes and you have a couple hours to learn it.
Join Polyphia in 3 days.
Right. And play with fucking Deftones from a year after that. Like, and that's right. And I didn't know necessarily what my timeline would be. I just knew in that instance, like, hey, my doctors are saying I have cancer. Like, I don't really know what the prognosis is. You could be here for a couple months, you could be here for like a year, I don't really know. But like as of now, like I'm stepping back into the band in 2024. So Miles is just finishing out this year. He's doing the In This Moment tour. I don't know if Doc is actually. I think Doc is focusing back with Bad Wolves.
I think so. I'm not positive either.
Yeah,
but
so. either way, that situation, to have both of those dudes step up, put so much hard work, front loading so much hard work to have an experience that I think all of us have been working our whole lives for, like to tour with Metallica. Like I'm so fucking honored to have those dudes as my buddies, and like, can I say proud of the fucking work they did? That feels weird to say, but I'm really fucking proud of them stepping up. I'm not their dads, but like fucking proud of them, dude.
I mean, you're their friend. You can be proud of your friends.
Yeah, I feel like pride is like a dad thing, right? I don't know. It feels weird. It feels weird.
Well, I'm a dad now, so I can be proud of everybody.
This is, hey, man, you can be proud of them for me. I
can be like real condescending. Like, you know, if you joined Metallica, I'd be like, hey, I'm proud of you, man.
Yeah, I would have been proud if that's something you could use. You could like lead people to what you want by them like
right.
striving for pride. That's good.
Right. I would have been proud if you were in Metallica, but your band played with Metallica. Opening. That's cool too.
Whatever, dude. You know? Like I like to show up like later at a show, so I didn't catch you guys. My bad.
Right. But you missed this tour, but you did get to play with Metallica, or you know, Ice Nine Kills got to play with Metallica, including you with Greta Van Fleet, I think, right? Like a year. You weren't on that one?
Sadly, no, dude. So.
Oh, I thought you were.
Yeah, I haven't toured for like 3 years, bro.
Oh, really?
Yeah, dude. Yeah. So like, dude, I don't know how much I want to get into this stuff.
Oh, I know about some of this stuff. Yeah. Gotcha.
Yeah. So it's just one of those things where it's like, things had to go a certain way. And like, right. I'm not the kind of guy who does what people say to do.
Right.
So here we are. But then as I'm ready to come back in and I'm fucking stoked, life is awesome. C word, you know? So no, I didn't get to play with Greta Van Fleet and Metallica. I haven't actually had the possibility to play any of these songs that I wrote for Welcome to Horrorwood live at all. I've only performed on Twitch. It's a really weird, it's a real weird situation. But I guess just
if you wanna play by your own rules, you gotta accept that sometimes you're gonna pay a price for that, which it sounds like you do.
Yeah, dude, I'm all for it. I understood the situation. Obviously, you know, time will tell what matters, what doesn't matter, and I'm gonna leave this as cryptic as it needs to be. But actually, to go back, because I don't want to not answer your question. You said, how did I get to this level at guitar playing?
And how and for other people, how should they do it if it's maybe not your way?
That's a really, really good question, man. So like, I approach everything in the most abstract, weird fucking way. I'm trying to think of like a good example that maybe I could pull on from like yesterday in my guitar lesson. So it's just a little bit more like on the nose, but like, let's say, okay, this is a good one. I have this student who was struggling with, she's a newer student and she's having some issues with like pain in the back of her wrist. She was having some issues with like extra motion in her fingers and stuff like that. And where 99% of guitar teachers and guitar players would go, well, let's squeeze less hard and let's move your fingers less. Squeezing hard and moving your fingers is a byproduct of 8 other things. So you don't just get to be like, oh, like if you want to lose weight, just don't eat. Like it's like the same solution, and it doesn't work that way, right? So I recognized that many fucking years ago. And it actually came from, let's see if I can even tie this in. I was trying to solve legato like 12 fucking years ago. Legato, for those of you guys who don't know, literally translates to the word smooth in Italian. Legato in Spanish is the cat. So I guess smooth pussy is legato. So we've got a really, really strange technique that is super nimble, super like samurai ninja, light on your toes. It's really, really challenging to master. And you need to have all 4 of your fingers operating individually as opposed to operating like a hand. And that becomes really challenging. So the second I would put finger 2 down, finger 1 needs to not be active, but it also needs to not be lifting away. Because if I lift finger 1, that is equally as much energy as me putting finger 2 down. And if guitar playing is a game of putting fingers down, why would I split my energy into putting fingers up too? Does that, even though you're not like super good, does that sort of make sense for you a little bit?
Yeah. I mean, I've been playing guitar for like, not very well, but I have played guitar for about 30 years, so I get it.
Okay. You get it, dude. You totally get it. So effectively, that sort of solution where I was like, okay, so I need to come up with an answer of how do I make it so that the second I put finger 2 down, finger 1 goes into the position it should be as a byproduct or a symptom of me putting finger 2 down. And then lo and behold, I'll just tell you all the real story because I usually tell my students, and then something rolled off my desk. It was a weed vial. It was a vial of weed. I'm not a fucking asshole. So I'm sitting in my studio trying to this was like 10 years ago, trying to solve this thing. And this vial of weed rolls off of my desk. And like Newton getting hit in the head with an apple, I understood legato like he understood gravity. And what it is, let me grab something round here. If something is rolling, forward and backwards occur in that same exact action. Do you see that? Same way that up and down occurs, left, right, diagonal this way is the diagonal that way. So effectively, if I have my hand as a ball rolling, obviously this is a mental feat. It's not, if my hand is a feat, no, that's really confusing. If the mental feat of turning my hand, which is effectively a square, you have 4 fingers creating a square and it's super clunky, by visualizing it as a ball, I can have my fingers rolling from finger to finger, which means that if finger 1 is where my thumbs connect, by me rolling to this crease, which is finger 2, by me simply rolling here, this finger went into an off position instead of down position. So like, although I'm getting extremely in the fucking minutia and details of this, what I'm trying to show you is like, it's the way that I think that allowed me to get to this point. I think of shit.
It's the software.
It's the software. It's not necessarily
It's the same way. So I do jujitsu, and it's the same way that if you ask someone, hey, how do I, I'm struggling with this armbar, how do I do it? And then 10 minutes later, they give you this really long answer about hips and inertia and momentum and all that, but, and people want to be like, no, just tell me where to put my hand, but it's not that simple.
It's not. It's counterweights. It's, yeah, dude, totally. So it's like, I would say that story, that concept, what I learned from that is like, whatever it is what it isn't. Whatever it isn't is what it is. So like, if there's a problem that you're facing, the solution is exactly what you think it isn't going to be. So I literally, like with my students, I'll even just be like, hey, what's the last thing you'd expect the solution to be? And it's what it is, because I'm training them to look for the holes, for the opportunities, for the light coming through the crack that they otherwise would miss, because they're like too busy, like, oh, my finger's flying away. Let me combat that by pressing it closer to the front. That means I'm now fighting 3 things. I'm trying to put my finger down. I'm trying to not put it up. And then I'm trying to put it back down. The fuck are you doing to yourself? So it's like, it's a lot of that sort of mental.
I would call that like first principles thinking.
That's genius. And the way that I talk about it in terms of interfacing, which is exactly what I would consider first principles is. It's like interfacing is the second that 2 things make contact with each other, not what you do when you're in contact with that, right? So it's not the techniques that I'm doing. It's how I'm like traversing the strings. How am I like touching the strings? How am I gripping the neck? What is my pick hold? What is the tension in my hands? Am I breathing? Are my shoulders relaxed? Can I actually feel gravity in my body? Because if I can't, then I'm combating gravity. Therefore, I've lost at least 20% of my availability in my hands. If I'm not, on and on and on, dude. So it's like,
for example, a lot of people carry a lot more tension in their face than they realize.
Dude, I was just working with my student yesterday because every time he plays, his lips quiver and move. And I'm like, hey, that's 15% at least lost in your face. Can I ask you to, and I had him just like stand up and shake and like make his lips all loose. And then he did the flicks perfectly right after that. Because if you look at like a hose, if I poke a hole in that hose, and if my whole entire focus is how much water is coming out of the end of that hose, if I poke a hole in the hose, I'm going to be losing some water pressure as well as wasting energy, right?
Right.
That's what that shit is. A quivering lip is as a leak down the hose.
So to your point earlier, the reason why your fretting is stiff might be because of your face.
Yeah, dude, you got to fix your fucking face.
But for real, it really might be.
It could be your face. It could be, I mean, dude, it's so interesting, right? Like people think like, oh, dude, I have tension in my shoulder. Well, do you know you have shoulder tension because your lower back is tense?
Right.
Can you release the front of your hips to relax your lower back on the other side of that? Do you know that the front of your hips are connected to your lower back? It's like
and
all
the
of
place you have your foot might be the reason why your back is stiff.
dude, exactly. Or is the person not have their foot propped up like they should when they're sitting, and that's going to cause other stuff? Or is their leg in their lap when they're trying to play?
Right.
Well, you're literally reaching around. You're doing a reach around on yourself, dude. Not
Which
gonna
is
be
impressive.
Yeah, dude. I mean, you should be on OnlyFans again. OnlyFeed.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's this thing where I guess I would say I don't subscribe to anyone else's thoughts or solutions with anything. Almost. And I mean, that's not true. I listen to my doctor. I listen to people I respect and love and shit. But like,
you're going to question them.
I question everything, dude. Like,
yeah.
Who said the moon is the moon? Like we're told the moon is the moon. Like I'll question everything, dude. No matter how insane it makes me look. Like, what is air? Do we really know what that shit is? What are magnets? Right?
Like when they made fun of Insane Clown Posse, he was right. Nobody understands magnetism at a fundamental level. We just know it exists. Violent J was right.
Exactly. What are magnets? I know
he was right.
I know it's fucking goofy, but if you can allow yourself to ask those questions once in a while, it opens your mind up to, like I said, seeing the light through the crack, to like see something someone else wouldn't. And then all of a sudden a solution is available to you that's going to get you one step further. And that's why you're here and they're not.
So you mentioned that you haven't had the chance to play a lot of the songs that you wrote for Ice Nine Kills. And so you've been in the band now for about 3 years, I think, right?
Like 5.5.
Oh, okay. Okay. A little bit longer than I realized.
I mean, so like it was the end of 2018. No, so like 4.5.
Okay. Got it. Well, how did you actually end up in the band? Because I don't think I know.
It's a good question, dude. I was living in Texas at the time, working on a music education business that was defunct. Business partner wound up being like world's largest scam artist, fucked me over. When I was traveling and on vacation, he like robbed the house and moved out and left me in this fucking house, like stole all of my gear and all this shit. I was in a really, really, really shit place. And I remember speaking with Ricky slightly in those months. And I think maybe that's where this happened. I think maybe that's why I was on Spencer's mind, potentially. But Spencer reached out to me out of the blue on Instagram. He added me and I was like, oh, fuck yeah. And ironically, this roommate I was just talking about, his girlfriend at the time's favorite band in the world was Ice Nine Kills. So for me, this was like the ultimate vendetta. Mm-hmm. But no, Spencer reached out to me on Instagram, asked what was going on with me, asked what my availability was. It was good. It was a go. And then he asked if I was down to learn, I think, American Nightmare. And what wound up happening was I filmed that as well as Merry Axmas, because like that's what I could pick up as like the hardest stuff guitar wise. So I did the Merry Axmas song. I did American Nightmare because it has that one little arpeggio thing. And then I did Savages as well, because it's kind of got like it's a feel sort of solo. So within 24 hours, I went above and beyond, sent them 3 instead of 1, sent them within 24 hours instead of the week kind of thing. Right. And I think that's a big part of why I operate in this realm, is because I'm a huge proponent of like under promise, over deliver. I think that's a really, really big factor in this industry. Actually, ironically,
any industry.
And yeah, super true.
Just actually, life.
Super true. Life. Yeah. The industry of life is very true. So I over delivered, and within like 2 days, Spencer hit me back and was like, hey dude, like whole band is stoked. Whole team above is stoked. Management's fucking stoked. You're in if you want to be. And then I started learning all this stuff. I think I had like a week and a half to learn about an hour of material. And then I flew out to Boston to Massachusetts to start rehearsal for the first tour in Joe's parents' basement, which was pretty epic. So it was really cool, dude. So we flew out to be with a bunch of dudes I'd never met before, spent like 2 weeks rehearsing, becoming best friends with these dudes immediately. And then life began, you know? And I will say, dude, that working with these guys after being in other bands and seeing the way that this team operates, seeing the way that the fans operate, there's something really fucking special about this world that I'm in now. It's really fucking cool.
Absolutely. It kind of really kicked off right about the time that you joined. So maybe it was Dan Sugarman was the secret ingredient that was missing this whole time.
I'm going to 100% not agree to that, but I appreciate you.
Yeah. Well, I do think, I think that, obviously the work that Spencer and everyone else have been doing for, the 15 years or so that you weren't in the band, obviously was like, a huge part of it. But musically, the band definitely leveled up a lot, after you joined.
Yeah, man. I mean, it was a really
like very noticeably.
Dude, that means so fucking much. I mean, first of all, I have to say this. Joe, our bass player, and he's like one of the other main writers between Spencer and I and him. He's such a fucking phenomenal musician and such an incredible piano player that like that's a huge part of it. The fact that like Spencer can have these ideas now and have zero, what's the word, filter for like what is possible. He's just like,
right.
Nuts to hear this, and like we'll do it, and then he'll be like, actually, that's a little bit too much, and then we could peel back from there.
That's a good problem to have.
It's a good problem to have. And
I mean, it's amazing to me that the band is as big as it is, playing stuff that is like very conceptually kind of left of center, and also musically now like just wild. Like it's really not accessible music that I like. It feels to me like it should be a tiny little cult band that only like total nerds like, and it's not that.
Dude. It feels to me like Spencer took the temperature of everything going on, and like, do you know? I forget the town. It's actually pretty. I think it might be Burbank, but the original McDonald's and the original Taco Bell are like across the street from each other. Do you know about this story?
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
no.
and Taco Bell was originally a burger place, and they were competing with all other burger places, like all the Tommy Boys and all that shit. What made Taco Bell become Taco Bell? The taco. They were doing burgers before that. So them being like, let's do like the same sorts of like ingredients in a completely different shape and like a different like culture and more of a niche, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden, you could argue Taco Bell is like as big as McDonald's, maybe not globally. But
if not, it's certainly close. It's right up there.
So I think Spencer did something really similar to that, where instead of doing what everyone else was doing better, he did what no one was brave enough to do.
Mm-hmm.
And as good or as bad as it was, it's continually getting better. And I think that's what keeps this band in this like very secure. Niche isn't even the right culture. It's not even a niche.
It's not a niche.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is if it was me. Because I'm, a marketing guy. If it was me with Welcome to Horrorwood, that would have been the butt rock album. I'd be like, now we got to play it safe, right? Because finally we've sort of broken through. We can't do anything that's too weird because we want the Octane people to like us. We got to do something safe. And it's definitely like the weirdest, most like technical material that Ice Nine has ever done.
Absolutely. And it's also on the inverse side of it. Like the first song we did for this record, I guess besides Hip to Be Scared, we actually wrote that in the bus on tour with Papa Roach right before COVID hit. So that one was like written on tour, I guess. But the first one we did, let's go home and actually write this fucking record, that was Ex Mortis. And that song is like, it's a 6/8 swing song. It's supposed to feel like zombie Elvis. It's super fucking simple, super direct. And it doesn't really have that same super extreme thing that you're talking about. And I think there's something really cool about the fact that like even the song Fly, for instance, or
like not everything has to be crazy.
Exactly. Like there's this, I sort of call it 311 theory. I feel like you like
I love 311.
Fucking I knew it. I knew you would. Okay, so like 311's first record came out and it's funk, punk, reggae, rock, rockabilly. And because they like preconceived that, whatever comes after it is totally accessible. Totally acceptable and accessible. I think Ice Nine continually does this thing where like you expect the unexpected because we've been doing that for so long that like you can get X, and this is what I was gonna say. So we wrote Ex Mortis, which is just like it's like we literally wrote that song for arenas. We wrote that song for that vibe, and like watching my band play with Metallica and open up with Ex Mortis, I was just like, this is okay, it worked. This is fucking insane.
Yeah.
But we wrote that, and then we wrote Assault and Batteries right after it, which is like, between Farewell to Flesh and Assault and Batteries, I would say that those two are the most extreme guitar-wise. Funeral Derangements is what I meant, not Farewell to Flesh. Funeral Derangements has
that's the Pet Sematary one?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. That one has extremely challenging guitar parts, but then it sits
Yeah.
back in the pocket. As where Assault and Batteries is pretty extreme the whole time. But the hard part in Funeral is probably a little harder than Assault and Batteries, but collectively Assault and Batteries is fucking up there. But just like the idea that we could oscillate between like zombie Elvis to like murdering doll chaos back to like, I think what was the one we did after that? It was probably like Shower Scene, which was like super mellow. And then I think we did actually Farewell to Flesh after that with Matt Squire. So it's like there you can do no wrong when you have the predetermined idea of all of it's right. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but that doesn't mean people are gonna like it or get it, which they do.
True. That's a very good point. I mean,
that's the part that's really amazing to me is like, it's one thing to be experimental. Like that alone, I respect that. But if you can be experimental and, you know, commercially successful, like, God damn, that is like the hardest thing in the world.
Yeah, dude. I mean, I think you and I could probably have this discussion for ages, but it probably has a lot to do with like accessibility combined with the ambiguousness, combined with the like enigma nature of Spencer while simultaneously being like super humorous and a normal, like it's like everything is like this middle path on all of this stuff that feels like extreme in any way, right? Like someone who's to anything. I think Spencer and the band for that matter, for the marketing team, we found a way to just kind of like hit the middle on almost everything. And I think it allows people to come up with their own extreme opinions or interpretations of what it is, right? Like I do know for a fact that people prefer the more extreme stuff over the not more extreme stuff, or they prefer the more like Worst Vacation, Shower Scene songs over the Assault and Batteries. Like there's for sure types of fans of us that prefer different types of songs we have. But the fact of the matter is all those people show up to the same show and they all commingle, love the songs just as much as the next person. And I think there's no answer. I think this band is an absolute anomaly. I think that's
totally. I think so too.
That's what it is, dude.
Yeah. Well, I think also it's kind of timing in the sense that if you did the same thing 12 years ago, I don't know that it would have worked so well. And like with guitar in particular, you know, like I said, I've been playing guitar for a long time, not particularly well, but I started playing in like 1990, like right at the very end of the shred era. You know, when Steve Vai and stuff was still in guitar magazines and stuff.
So sick.
And it feels to me like guitar is in a better place now than it has been probably since then. You know, with, you know, Polyphia, Animals as Leaders, you know, Periphery, these bands that are doing like very, you know, these are all like very, very guitar focused bands, you know, and plenty of others, people like Jason Richardson, stuff like that. You know, it feels like we're in a place now where that kind of, I'll call it shred music. Even though I don't think those bands are all exactly that, but it's like, you know, it's guitarist music.
Virtuoso type shit.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I feel like it's in a better place than it has been since then. And that it's not just guitarists who are into that stuff.
You're super right, dude. You're super right. And I wonder what it is. Cause I'm, as you were saying this, I'm like, yeah, you know what? There was Steve Vai and there was Joe Satriani and there was Paul Gilbert. I could list you like too many people right now that are like feeling like that to me in the scene today.
And there was and like if you look at like Jeff Loomis in 2011, I mean he had his fans, and he's on that level, but he was not. I mean, just nobody was getting the kind of reaction that people like Tim Henson are now. You know what I mean? It's just
is it the timing crisscross of socials with like.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, people like, you know, or Ichika, these people that like, there wasn't really a venue for people to like show off, you know, in the way that like, I think specifically Instagram, you know, and TikTok let you do. There wasn't a place to show off in 2011 like there is now. I mean, there's MySpace, but it's not the same, you know, or Facebook or whatever. It's not the same.
Do you know what I think is another big part of this too is like, when I was a kid growing up and I would still buy those Steve Vai Guitar World magazines and be like, yeah, that's Steve Vai though. Like I can't do that. I'm not going to ever hit that mark. That's like, all right, maybe the people he talks about like in the news, like I'll check out Like I remember he was talking about Aaron Marshall and he was talking about Pliny a couple years ago, and I was like,
Yeah.
all right, so like he's recognizing that this is like the new thing. So he's sort of passing the baton, so to speak, passing the torch, right? And I recognized that, and I started to see dudes like Tim Henson, dudes like Manuel. Do you know Manuel Gardner? He's unbelievable. From Unprocessed, this is band. It's another Polyphia style band, super sick. Angel Vivaldi, like on all these kinds of guys, right? It's the accessibility of it. It's the fact that you could see the success they're having and then be like, hey man, how are you doing? And then talk with them about like, what's going on in their day, and then maybe how they did it, and then be like, watch a video of them working on a part that they can't play yet, and you're like, fuck, they're human.
Right.
I could.
Right.
So I think there's this thing where people can like taste the success that all these people are now feeling or living. And I think it's creating this magnetism for people to put in that extra effort right now. And I think that's a big part of why like the youngest kids these days are making people my age look like we can't play music, because there's this like
it's
excitement.
Monstrous. Like I remember, I'll put it in terms of drums, but I remember, back in the day, it was rare to find anybody that even owned a double bass pedal, let alone could play competent double bass.
Yep.
In like that are playing in like real bands. And now just the average 16-year-old at Guitar Center just wipes the floor with anybody from my generation, basically.
How weird would you be to buy a single kick, right?
Do they make those?
Yeah.
They still make guitars with 6 strings?
Yeah, you have to buy a half double kick. You don't get a single kick.
Right. Right. But I mean, it's true. I mean, just you go on TikTok and you can find millions and millions of just random high school kids playing the craziest Midwest emo stuff and just all the shit that, you see thousands. It's not just 3 people that can do this stuff. It's thousands. And you're like, well, I guess if there's 5,000 people on TikTok that do it, why can't I be 5,001?
Yeah, there's something really interesting in like the isolated nature that it was at before. Like there's Steve Vai in his own isolated, like now there's this connectivity, there's this like fascia or connective tissue that is social media connecting all of us together. And I think like, do you know 100th Monkey, that theory?
Yeah. I remember the movie. I don't remember like,
no, I think you're thinking of 12 Monkeys.
Oh, maybe the Bruce Willis movie. Yeah.
Yeah. Dude, that movie fucking slaps. 100th Monkey is a concept where it's like this monkey is put in a cage and it solves, it's given a puzzle to solve and it gets frustrated and they take it out. Then they put another monkey in, it bypasses frustration and starts to do it. And maybe gets one piece. Then the next monkey comes in, immediately gets that one piece, gets a second piece. And by the 100th monkey, solves it immediately. That monkey didn't know any of the other monkeys, was never around that puzzle, walks in and immediately solves it. Then every monkey after that can solve it. It's the concept of collective consciousness. Right.
Okay.
And it's fucking real. And I have this opinion.
Sure, it is. Yeah.
It feels like 100th Monkey. It's like, all right, Tim Henson did it. And here's how he did it. And now we know that we could all do it. And then if someone else can do it, I can do it. And now 3 of us won. Let's make that 6. Like the compound growth mixed with the 100th Monkey, mixed with the connective tissue. I think there's a lot of stuff going on right now. Like you said, it's the time that's making this so awesome.
Yeah. Well, the flip side of that is like, and I'd be interested to know your answer to this is like, because everyone's so good now, how do you stand out in a world where Jason Richardson exists?
It's a really good question. I remember hearing this quote about Jeff Bezos. Your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. Have you heard that before?
Mm-hmm.
That is what I think the solution is. What do people say about Jason Richardson? Dude,
they say, God damn it, that guy is fucking insanely, inhumanly good at playing guitar.
Right. And like for me, I'll attach like pieces of that to my brand, but I want to have much more things attached to it. Like the fact that I'm a super real dude, the fact that love fucking cooking and fucking meditating and like talking about nutrition and health and like, so like,
it's like if all you have is that you're good, you have to be the absolute best. Exactly. Which I would say in terms of like just straight up shredding, Jason arguably is that of this generation.
That'd be like me looking at Steve Vai back in the day and being like, I'll do that. Plus you don't, right?
You don't.
The only person who's going to get better than Jason Richardson is someone who probably
some 12-year-old right now.
Right. Who's just like, doesn't even know he exists. They just are like,
and in 5 years going to be like, holy fuck, what is this?
Exactly. Like, I don't think someone directly competing with Jason is going to feel inspired to surpass him. I think it's going to be someone who understands that true growth and expertise and mastery comes from competing with yourself.
Yeah.
And I think the 12-year-old who hears that and like whatever fucking self-help book he needs to fucking read for that, it's going to be huge. It's going to be huge. It's happening right now. Like you just said.
I would also argue that, especially with people, you know, like with like Tim Henson or Polyphia in general, I mean, obviously they're like incredibly good players from a technical perspective, but I think that they're
complete.
They're exactly. It's their overall like aesthetic sensibility, and I don't mean just the visuals. Like, I mean, it's like their songwriting. You know, it's all of that. It's like if all Tim did was just post like cool guitar tricks, Polyphia would not be a tenth as big as they are.
Absolutely not. And also just going on what you just said, their songs feel like what they look like.
Yes.
Their songs feel like white, flowy cloth with like leather and nice lamps.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like that's everything that Tim Henson is doing in his studio when he like, do you think he's not on purpose, like kicking back in his couch and like leaning back in a position where you look beyond relaxed? And then you're doing what you
and you can see his Gucci flip-flops.
It's all, I don't want to use the word concocted in a negative way, but it's all concocted. It's all a
deliberate.
Part of, like, it's deliberate, right? It's all a matter of like, if I understand that perception is reality, how can I play with your perception so that I can control what you think my reality is?
Right.
In a fucked up way, right? But that's sort of like, is that marketing 101 maybe?
Well, like way? People always like talk shit about me for wearing like Nike stuff.
Get fucked.
But that's deliberate. It's because I don't exactly. I don't want, I mean, for one, I just actually like the brand because it fits me well. That's part of it. So it's not like, you know, it's not concocted in that way, but like I could go out and buy like a metal costume and wear that all the time. Be like, oh, people want me to wear, you know, fucking Machine Head shirts or whatever. I could go out and buy my metalhead costume.
You calling merch a costume?
it would be if I bought it inauthentically. Yes, it would be a costume.
Right. Yeah.
Not when other people do it. No, like I'm not saying it is for them, but like for me, it would be a costume. But
all clothes we wear is a costume. I'm just tripping out if you zoom out on that enough. It's a little bit.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah, especially as things with, you know, logos on them, which, you know, merch is like, it's an expression of your identity.
Absolutely.
You know, it's a message that you want to send to the world. Why did you buy that Misfits shirt? Why do you want people to know you're a Misfits fan? You know, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing. Just there's a reason for it.
That was the first band shirt I ever bought in 6th grade. And I was made so much fun of for wearing that fucking shirt, the Die My Darling Misfits shirt.
Oh, that's a good one. I used to have that one.
Sick shirt, dude. And I remember like I brought
that's
that.
The one with like the eyeball, right?
It's like it's got like a Marilyn.
Oh no, that's the Marilyn Monroe one. Yeah, no,
it's and like purple Misfits, I think, up top.
Yeah.
Sick shirt. But I remember like for 2 years, people just made fun of me, and then all of a sudden in 8th grade, all of my friends started wearing band shirts, and I was like, I get it. Good luck, guys, being fucking costumed.
But like for me, I dress the way that I dress in videos because, you know, I want to make it clear that basically I'm not sort of the guy that wears the denim vest with the Motorhead patch on it.
Right.
You know what I mean? That I have a different point of view. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but just that I have a different point of view. So that sends a message, you know.
It totally does. Are you hip to, I feel like you know Matt Bacon. Do you know Matt Bacon?
No, I mean, a little bit. I've talked to him a little bit.
He's like another one of those dudes where you're like, when I think of Matt Bacon, I think of a cigar.
Yes.
Right. Or he doesn't.
And
that
was the first thing I was going to say about him. Actually, is like, oh yeah, the guy that's always smoking the cigars.
And it's not even smoking; it's just in his mouth.
Okay, there we go.
And that's
he probably owns one cigar.
For all we know, it's a prop, right? It's the same one every day, and it's like it's just one of those things where you're like, oh, the guy with the cigar. Otherwise, you're like, oh, that dude named Matt.
Right.
How does that go anywhere? So like in the day and age where some 12-year-old Korean kid is going to just play circles around me, How do we stand out? I think it's those types of things. Like it's infusing other things into the conversation so that you're not just like, because if someone goes, oh, he's the best, and then someone can retort with, no, they're not, this one is, you lose.
Right. He's the second best. Yeah. That's not that cool.
It's not that cool. It's not that cool.
You know?
Although number 2 is pretty cool. Shit in your pants. Pretty cool. Yeah, there's something really interesting about that though, dude. I've never had this thought. It's a really heavy question you're asking, man.
Well, I mean, that's the challenge, I think, for creators of any kind, really, is, that's the challenge, you know, because we live in a world where there's so many people doing everything, and a lot of them are very good at it, you know, unless you were like very, very, very obviously the absolute best, it's got to be something else. And to your point, you know, that's a temporary thing. You know, that's not sustainable. You can't be that forever, no matter who you are, you know?
I mean, at some point you're getting arthritis, right? And then you're like, at some point. Let me ask you this. Do you think people who are recognizing that like they need to elevate what their brand is or whatever, and they need to like create other conversation pieces and like other topic points, do you think it works best when you actually are just bringing in who you are, or when it is, I guess, deliberate, concocted, different words? Let's use the word concocted, right?
Yeah.
So if it's concocted, do you think that works as much as just revealing your authentic self?
I have a very specific answer for this. People will tell you that they want authenticity. That is not true. What people want is what they perceive as authentic. Like, I'm sure you know this as well as anybody, I'm sure, because it happens to me too. If you just really like put out your pure, unadulterated, authentic self, I bet a lot of people don't dig it.
Yeah, I mean, this, like right now we're in a podcast, right? This is me. But am I putting it on a little bit? Fuck yeah, dude. Of course. I just slammed coffee to wake up to like be up enough.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if it's not palpable, then I guess it's going to be perceived as authenticity. Like, what's his name? Jody High Roller. What's that dude's name?
Riff Raff.
That's like the first thing that comes to my mind is like, is anyone on earth authentically that? Probably fucking not. I guess maybe Flavor Flav.
No, although I know somebody that lived with him for a while, and I was like, have you ever seen him break character? And he's like, only once, dude.
Whoa. All right.
They were going to the airport, and his car broke down. On the way to the airport, he got pissed off and broke character. That's the only time.
but it's character, right?
Yeah.
That's so challenging. So it's just like I don't.
So I think there's like I think there's some people who can basically be their authentic self, and that works for them. I don't know the guy well enough to say for sure that this is true, but I think Nick Nocturnal is an example of that. Like, I get the sense that what you see on YouTube is like Nick's 100% like authentic self, and people love it. It's possible that he's like playing a character and this is all a lie, but I don't think so.
He's a really good actor then.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's just genuinely 100% who he is. I don't think there's anything about that that's like contrived. And if you're one of those people, that's awesome, and I wish I was too. But for the rest of us, especially if you're wired a little bit differently than the rest of the world, which you and I both definitely are, then you kind of have to put a little bit more thought into it. And like, if you think you're going to go out into the world and just be your authentic self, and everyone's going to reward you and pat you on the back for that, not going to fucking happen, most likely. In fact, dude, probably you're going to fuck up your whole life.
It's super true, man. I'll use a really, really, really simple example, because this was me. It's the notion of, hey man, you want to go out tonight? Authentically, no, I don't. Right, I've done that enough in my life. I'm good, bro. But if I say no enough times, I won't be invited anymore.
Yeah.
And then my authentic self is clearly chosen as the loser, and they would have preferred me to be inauthentic and showed up, right?
Exactly.
So there's
exactly
moments,
right.
There's moments where we need to show up as a character for other people.
Yeah.
That's a little bit
Maybe
strange.
some people don't need to go through life this way, and I'm envious of them.
It's not a struggle to show up to a fucking event for everyone, but
yeah, like I wish I wish I didn't have to like spend like deliberate effort thinking about almost everything that I do or say and wonder how other people are going to perceive it. I sure wish I didn't have to live that way, but I do.
Yep. Yeah, that's I just learned a word recently that I've been using too much. Have you heard of the word ontological?
Yes, but I don't know what it means.
It's like an internal truth. Like the second you say that, I'm like, yep, that resonates so deeply with me that I know that is me. It's like if someone's like, what goes up must come down. Yeah, nope, I feel that. That's facts.
Okay.
There's like an ontological feeling behind what you just said that hurts a little bit.
Yeah, it sucks.
It sucks, dude. Like the people who are just like, yeah, let's fucking go. It's gonna rule. I'm like, dude, I gotta like prep my brain to pretend to be excited. Exactly, because I know that you want me to be excited, and I genuinely like you, and I'm not trying to manipulate you. I'm just like, okay, I know that if I just say like, yeah, sounds good with this face, then you're gonna think I'm not excited, and that's gonna make you sad, and you're my friend, and I don't want you to be sad, so I'm gonna smile right now, to make you feel good, which will make me feel good. Let's do it. I'm stoked.
Exactly. And it's not that I'm not stoked. I just know that I have to display this in a certain way so that you read it the right way. Like my old boss, there were two of us that worked for him. And my counterpart, she was like an engineer for like software engineer for like 15 years and stuff. And her and I were like wired very similarly. And I remember there's one time we were in a meeting and he was explaining this idea to us that he was really excited about. And we're like listening, and he just stops in the middle of the sentence. And he's like, are you guys like mad at me? Is this like the worst idea you've ever heard? And we just looked at each other and were like, no, this is good. Why? He's like, you guys look like I just, told you to fuck yourselves. And both of us were just like, oh, okay. And so that's when you have to do that. You got to put on the mask of like smile and nod sometimes so that the humans, it's like, I feel like sometimes I wonder, it's like, I wonder how much cognitive effort I spend. I feel like I constantly have like a process running in my brain that's like basically allocating some like kind of large portion of my cognitive cycles to this.
Yeah. Your head's like, remind them you're human, blink twice.
Yeah, which I think this is called autism. The older I'm not joking. The older I get, I'm like,
you're so right.
Yeah, I think that's what this is.
You're so right. We don't need to go there, but yes, me, yes. Hello. You, yes.
It is what it
us,
is.
Yes. Ism, yes. Dude, it's a superpower
too, at least for some people. For other people, it's really hard. But for other people, that's the reason why I'm able to do everything I do. And it's super fucking easy for me to do things that are really hard for other people.
And then also like doing the dishes might be impossible.
Well, yeah, at least it took me 20 years to learn that, but like for me, like I can look at a system of things, like for example, the way a company runs or something like that. And it's like very obvious to me almost instantly,
like pattern recognition,
sort of,
right?
Yes, how this is going to play out unless we change something. It's obvious and it comes to me almost instantly.
Did you have, we don't need to go here, but that's usually a skill set developed from traumatic childhood.
Yeah, it wasn't great. My mom was like alcoholic. Her parents died and her brother killed himself and blah, 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 all this awful stuff.
Jeez, yeah. I
mean, other people had it far worse than I did, but it wasn't ideal. Of course,
but again,
I've been that way my entire life. I think I was just born with it.
Totally. But at the same time, your propensity to like look for patterns and see solutions and be able to predict what's going to happen is to keep yourself safe.
To avoid uncertainty in the future, which is my fundamental drive in life, is to avoid uncertainty because I believe uncertainty leads to negative outcomes.
Which creates amazing successes for you in so many different facets of your life. And then your wife's like, let's go spontaneously do, and you're like,
like, no.
Exactly, right.
No.
So there's like, how about can you write out a script of everything we'll do, and then so this like, it's a super,
like I eat the same thing for breakfast every single day, and I have for years, and if I don't get to eat it, it causes me, I feel a fight or flight response.
Yeah, dude, that's definitely some tisms.
Yeah, and I can push it down, but like
Right.
I feel it like like it's okay, man. It's just eggs. You can live without it today.
It's so interesting. I'm trying to remember where I read this recently, but it was the discussion that like ADHD, attention deficit hyper disorder, it's not a disorder, it's actually an overwhelm, right? And it's not a deficit, it's an overwhelm. It is a disorder. Let's not be wrong with that.
Mm-hmm.
It's an overwhelm. And ADHD in the modern times where there's like everything you could possibly need is like a foot away from us or at a button, it's excessive because everything's taking my attention. But in a world where our tribe is like cooking fucking meat and I'm off the side and I heard this fucking crack in the woods and that was the wolf that was gonna fucking like, we're alive because I heard that and no one else did.
Yeah.
So there's like certain aspects where this is designed into humanity for a very particular reason, except the wolf doesn't exist anymore. And the people who have this ism we're talking about, the wolf exists in their mind constantly.
Yes.
And that's where it becomes that fight or flight thing. That's where like I just did some blood work recently, and just, I guess, as an education to people, I just learned this shit. My blood work was like, my guy said, dude, you've been on adrenaline and cortisol, like you're anxious as fuck constantly, huh? He said that my blood was filled with adrenaline and cortisol. And I was like, well, yeah, like it's something I've been dealing with, but it's been the past couple of weeks. Didn't really think anything of it. And then I spoke to my doctor soon after that. Lo and behold, there's new information coming out. For every hour that you're under anesthesia is 1 month of fucked up symptoms, including the fact that your blood is just going to be like basically half adrenaline cortisol. So they did this study on dogs where they put dogs under, not death, that sounded gnarly. They put dogs under for sleep, and they put another, like the B group, under, and they would just like cut open the leg and then stitch it back up. And the other one was just put out. And the amount of cortisol and adrenaline was equal in both of those groups, regardless of having the surgery or not.
Right.
And the adrenaline and cortisol stayed in the blood for as long, in terms of months, for as many hours as they were under. So I'm still dealing with like 1 more month of fucky symptoms because of that, which is a great, like, people don't say that shit, dude. I was sitting here dealing with like debilitating anxiety things that were coming on. Like I would like go on a drive and all of a sudden I like, whoa, I'm going to black out. What the fuck's going on? I can't stay awake. What the fuck? And then all of a sudden I'm finding out it's because my body is like looking for its thyroid, and then it's freaking out. And because there's no nerves anymore there, it's sending a bunch of referred pain. So I feel neck and heart pain. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to die. And my doctor's like, no, that's because your nerves don't have anywhere to go. So they're just doing referred pain. So all of this stuff starts to make a lot more sense when you look at it for what it is instead of what you think it could be.
Right.
And then everything sort of calms down. But just the notion of like that wolf in the mind, that adrenaline and cortisol existing all times, puts us on high alert. And I think being on high alert keeps you super attentive and super aware. And I think that awareness and attentiveness is what goes hand in hand with like the types of creatives that we are. And ironically, I didn't know you were like a 30-year, you're a tenured musician. I knew you played bass, like in bands.
I mean, I'm not, I mean, compared to you guys, I completely fucking suck, but.
And compared to fucking Tim Henson, I suck. Like who cares? So it's just like, compared to Steve Vai, Tim Henson sucks. It's like you can do that forever, right? And I don't actually mean that. I'm just saying like you could forever shit on yourself if you compare. But like just the whole notion of like all of these isms that all of us are dealing with, I think they're either superhero capes if you wear them, circling back on the pride thing. If you can wear that shit proudly, that's a fucking superhero cape. Otherwise,
and you got to be able to take it on and off in the right situations.
Yes, dude.
That's the hard part, is taking it off. Like you said,
push it down. Like if you're at a fucking URM event and you don't get your eggs, you still need to be on at the URM event.
Yes.
You don't get to be Finn throwing a fit, right?
Yes, exactly. And you know, I just thought I was an asshole for so long. You know, really, I just thought like, wow, I'm just a fucking asshole. And I really beat myself up for a long time. And it's only recently, after talking to my psychiatrist and stuff, that like, no, that's just the way my brain works, which, you know, just is what it is. It's the same way as if someone's like, hang on, can you walk a little slower? I've got a, you know, fucked up knee or something. It's like nobody thinks less of you because your knee works differently.
Right.
You know?
And also for that matter, just because you said this, and like I've been taking on this concept that I think true man shit, true masculinity is vulnerability. And you talking about a psychiatrist right now and us talking about all of this stuff. I am excited because in 48 minutes, I have my first therapist that I've done in like 6 fucking years. And this is about like what I just went through. And it's like, this is like, thank you for saying that, man. This is something that I think a lot of people are like afraid to talk about. And I was actually hit up. I don't give a fuck either, dude. I was hit up by so many musicians when I was talking about the cancer shit. And they were like, dude, you're like, I have so much respect for you that you were able to like share this with people. Like I went through this and this and this. And like, I was afraid. And I'm sitting there going like, I would have no idea how to keep that private.
Yeah,
like
same.
I would have no, you know what I mean? And I'm sitting there going like, I didn't know I was a superhero crusading for like what you thought was impossible. But for me, this is super fucking normal. But you just saying that right there, like I have this like, I did therapies a long time ago. I've gone through a bunch of therapists because of like my mom's stuff many, many years ago.
Yeah.
But like it didn't go well. And because of that, I have 6 years of like these aversions to it. Dude, stepping into vulnerability, stepping into this shit, I think is like, that's man shit as far as I'm concerned. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm just trying to color it. Like,
no, I think so too. To me, I think of it like in fighting, you know, when someone loses and then they make a bunch of excuses and say their opponent sucked and this, that, and the other, just like roll my eyes. But when someone else is like, dude, that guy's a beast. I couldn't get anything going. He knocked me the fuck out in the second round. Props to him. I'm like, respect. There's someone who like, exactly. And willing to like admit reality to me, it's like my fundamental thing in life is that I do my very best. Well, I don't really have a choice. I believe that I just see reality as it is and act accordingly, you know? And like, I think a lot of other people sort of, everyone sees reality, or at least mostly, but they don't want to see it. You know, I'm like, well, it just is what it fucking is.
It's horse blinder life, dude.
It just is what it is.
Yeah.
You know, like I got cancer. This fucking sucks. What do we do?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. My uncle, like 7 months ago, I was in New York visiting him and we were driving and we were in traffic and we were going to not make it somewhere in time. And he looks at me and goes, it is what it isn't. That shit fucked me up. That phrase, it is what it is. Everyone says that. It is what it isn't. Twists my shit up.
What do you mean by that?
It's like it's exactly what you think it is. I was like, exactly what you think it is what it isn't. Whatever the truth is, the opposite is also true.
Yeah.
It's just
absolutely.
It's accepting like the yin yang of reality. That you're like, I know that
reality is what it is, but the way that you interpret it and what you do about it is completely up to you.
And that's what I think that phrase that he was saying.
Like, this is a disaster. We're going to miss the wedding. Well, maybe we'll miss the wedding, but whether it's a disaster or not is up to you.
Yeah. Like maybe there was like a fucking car accident around the corner that we don't know we avoided.
Or maybe you and I are going to have a great conversation in this car that I'm going to remember for the next 20 years and it's going to be awesome. And this will change my life.
Exactly, dude. And just the notion of it is what it isn't has been something that I've applied to guitar for like my entire guitar playing career. It's like, it's the same concept that I use to think differently. And then lo and behold, the uncle who bought me that guitar for my bar mitzvah drops this fucking quote on me that fucks up and proves my guitar approach. It's like a weird full circle thing. But that whole ism conversation we're having, man, is really rubbing me wrong and right at the same time. It's do you hear people talking about this stuff like in this realm? Have you done this before?
No. Well, I mean, I've
heavy.
talked about it a little bit here and there, but the main thing I've realized is like specifically for my Discord, shout out to my Discord. I'm not trying to throw you under the bus, but over the past couple years, like I've realized that especially in metal, the amount of autism is off the motherfucking charts.
Yeah, dude.
And I'm not saying it's a bad thing. Like I'm not judging or putting anyone down or like, I actually like autistic people.
Same.
But I just sort of didn't realize that it was that much of a thing because when I was a kid, like autistic meant that you sat in a corner and stared at the wall and didn't talk. Like that, it was either that or you were normal, one or the other when I was a kid, you know?
It wasn't a spectrum thing.
No, it was like either you were just like profoundly disabled and nonverbal, or you were normal, one or the
Right.
other.
Right.
And from interacting with people over the past couple of years, I've just like, okay, I've just learned to see a lot of these patterns of human behavior that maybe before I would just be like, this guy's weird or something like that. But now I'm like, no, this is a whole type of human being, which sometimes I fit into, sometimes I don't, whatever. But it's just made me really, really hyper aware of this thing and get to know these people a lot better and realize like, oh, in some ways I fit in with them, and just think about sort of some of the patterns that I exhibit too, if that makes sense.
Dude, I absolutely see that. I mean this with the most love in the world. I think that like everybody is a little bit autistic, like in reality, just as much as like the old joke that like everyone's a little homosexual, right? It's like the same, It's the same kind of concept, right? And I think that, let me see if I can find a way to say this. The discussion of like the rise of autism in today's day and age is like unlike any other era.
I have heard people talk about that. I don't have an opinion on whether it's true or not.
So is the popularity of metal.
Yeah, well, yes. I mean, certainly the awareness of autism for sure is a thing. Whether that's because we recognize something we didn't recognize before, or whether it's because there is actually something new, I don't know. Yeah, but definitely like, the awareness of it.
In myself, I was drawn to metal music because it expressed something that I knew was real in a way that I couldn't. It was touching on emotions that felt taboo. It was where I felt outcasted and misunderstood. I was stepping into a circle of people who are also outcasted and misunderstood.
Yeah.
When I felt like I didn't have words to express something, which is absolutely autism.
Right.
Music would express it for me, and metal music for that matter. I would hide in my costumes to feel like more like myself. Like all of these things, if you zoom out enough, dude, like that's all coping, right?
You kind of checks all the boxes. And the other thing, I just did a podcast with the guy with Amos from Tesseract talking about this, but also stimming.
No, oh my gosh. Yeah. Big thing.
Especially like technical music, right? Soothes the brain, soothes an overstimulated brain by like raising the overall noise level. And I mean that literally and figuratively. Yeah. If the world is noisy and overwhelming, but you play fucking, Necrophagist super loud, well, now everything just sort of like drowns out all the noise of the world.
It's the smelling salts of fucking music is what it is.
Right.
Yeah, I totally see that. And I have to now listen to this podcast you just did, because Tesseract is one of my all-time favorite bands. Amos fucking rips. And if you guys talk,
you'll like it. It's a good one. You'll like it.
Awesome, dude. Yeah. The world we're in is so interesting, man. What is your take on the current like scene in metal? Like, where do you see this headed? Because I have this thought or conversation, I should say, with students all the time on like Lorna Shore is the shit right now. Where is that headed? Where's that is I feel like deathcore's on its way out. Something new's happening. Like, where do you think the next thing is?
I think the next thing, which is people will scoff at this because for better or worse, again, my superpower is that I can like see the future.
Predict, dude. That's why I'm asking you. You're which Metal Damus. People hate. I think the thing that we will look back on as being significant, I would say, is like alternative pop. For example, like Olivia Rodrigo would be an example of this. It's a lot of these like women, I think, is, Charlotte Sands, you could put Charlie XCX as kind of part of that. I think we're going to look back on that as like part of alternative culture in a way that like currently people kind of don't. Like everyone hates Olivia Rodrigo now and thinks she's blah, 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 blah. Really? Isn't she like the biggest selling ever or some shit?
Yeah. Yes. But the people who decide these things,
Got you. The haters.
Yes, exactly. And they talk about her exactly the same way they talked about Paramore and stuff 15 years ago. Now that's not like directly metal, but I mean, there's people like Maggie Lindemann and stuff like that. She has like I think it's out now. Like she has a straight up gent song on her album. Stuff like that. I mean, it's more metal than people. Lil Uzi Vert, just went to number one on Billboard with an album that has Bring Me the Horizon and Baby Metal on it, and the guy from Paleface Swiss wrote one of the songs, and it's fucking number one on Billboard, So I think there's a lot of this sort of, alternative pop and hip hop stuff that is like very obviously a part of the culture that isn't currently recognized as such. I think in 10 years, because it takes a while, rock people are kind of slow to adapt.
Led Zeppelin just got old.
Kills. What's that?
Led Zeppelin just got old.
Exactly. Yeah. And Ice Nine Kills is a good example of this. Took 15 years for Ice Nine Kills to become an overnight success.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I think. In regards to like metal in particular, I think the rise of like home recording and just the technology, I think, is unlocking like a whole like I don't think this stuff will ever be like on MTV. It's not going to be like mainstream kind of stuff, I don't think. But basically, there's a whole generation of people who want to be the next Misha, Tim, whatever, that are this combination of like guitarist / content creator / producer / entrepreneur.
I almost see the whole like musician, producer, business. Like I just almost look at like musicians are entrepreneurs now.
Yes, exactly.
Like it's entrepreneurs who have an instrument in their hands is like really what it feels
who
like.
Also make TikToks and YouTube videos, and do lessons and sell plugins, and maybe have like clothing brand or something like that. Yeah, I think that's the future, and that stuff may not get to number one on Billboard or whatever, but there's no reason you couldn't make a couple $100,000 a year doing it, even if nobody in the mainstream knows who you are. Who gives a shit?
Yeah. Niches are still absolutely livable.
Yeah, Periphery is not on the cover of Rolling Stone, but Misha's got a nice fucking car collection.
Yeah, he does. And they're happy and they're fucking covered,
Yeah, and they can do whatever they want on their own terms.
Yeah. Dude, have you
what more could you want than that?
Have you heard of Max Martin before?
Yeah.
Do you know that whole backstory?
Some of it. I know Shellback was in a Sumerian core band.
Who's Shellback?
Shellback is like his like right-hand man, his like protege.
Oh, I didn't know that.
He was in a band. I think they were on Nuclear Blast. I forget. But yeah, he was in like a metalcore band. So this
speaks exactly to what I was about to say. So for those of you guys who don't know, Max Martin is the undisputed number one producer songwriter of all time. He will never be beaten because record sales will never be like they were in the 90s.
He has like 25 number one hits and like 100 top 10 ones or something like that.
And he's still like relevant. He's still doing it to this day. He's still writing songs for people. But like if you think of any major 90s song, like all the Britney Spears, all the NSYNC, all the Backstreet Boys, all the 98 Degrees, all the fucking any of those, and
Taylor bands, Swift.
He wrote all of that shit, dude. He wrote all of it, right? Max Martin's favorite band in the world is In Flames. Right? So the number one guy who cracked the code of pop music is actually bringing in the algorithms of metal into pop music. And that happened.
Yeah, huge percentage of the people who make pop are metal people.
Yeah, I mean, Zed.
Like I would say maybe even the majority of them.
Yeah, because it's like, wouldn't you rather be overtrained? Like, wouldn't you want to lift 200 pounds so that if your job is lifting 100 pounds, it's super easy? Like that's what being a metal musician is like, if I go this far, anything before that's going to be a breeze, right?
Yeah.
But just going on that notion that like everything that we all grew up on in the 90s was built on metal structure of like the build up, the drop, the breakdown, like Max Martin has an equation for writing hits. And if I could explain this, if you're interested, it's pretty fucking wild. But the concept is basically that like he brought metal songs to people through a different scope. So now all the people who grew up loving metal without knowing it was metal are finding metal. And I feel like this is a really big part of why all of a sudden, besides the TISM comment we were just making a second ago, probably both play hand in hand with it. But I think that that's something huge to do with it. Like Max Martin planted these metal seeds in the fucking 90s. And now everyone who's in like the power play position, because we're all old enough now, that's
that's totally true.
That was our roots, you know?
Yeah.
But that shit is just so true. I just love the fact that like everything that we thought was pop and glittery actually came from metal. It's fucking awesome.
The more you know. Well, I'll let you get ready for your therapist appointment here.
Oh, dude. No worries, man.
But thank you so much for joining me, and always a pleasure to talk.